Yeah, so that is the organization that was referred to in the editorial. So St. John's is a more traditional transitional program. They do have very strict requirements for admittance. I do believe they do drug testing. They have very, very strict rules and programming. And for some people that works, and that's great. And certainly as a continuum of care, we want to give people options. That program is not intrinsically connected to our continuum of care because their philosophy isn't housing first. If somebody comes to our door, our front door, who wants that type of structure and that kind of programming, we want to offer that to them. But that model doesn't really fit with the defined path that we're going down.
Does that prevent them from getting funding?
They get a lot of funding through private donations. They actually use that program particularly used to get HUD funding, and because they know that their program doesn't match HUD's model, they've actually given back their HUD money recently.
And then last question, one of the panelists I was hoping to see is Lloyd Pendleton from the state of Utah, and Senator Mitchell and I had met with him separately, but it was certainly an impressive story. And you mentioned Utah a few times in your remarks, so can that be replicated in California, or is Utah kind of a unique state?
I think there are things about the Utah model, and that's in Salt Lake City in particular, and the state of Utah. The state of Utah was very also instrumental in sort of coordinating the response across all of the localities in Utah. But the rapid rehousing model and the drive to house all their chronically homeless people with permanent supportive housing units, those strategies are replicable. I think that absolutely the housing costs and the sort of the difficulty of the market obviously is much worse in some parts of California. Some parts of California, that's not so, right? But in certain localities, it's very difficult. But those two strategies are still the main strategies that they used and are already being used in California and I would say, are replicable.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Morlock. Senator Pan, and then I believe we're going to let you go. Well, thank you appropriately, and then welcome our next panelists.
I certainly want to thank the panel for your testimony and for answering the various questions from us here today, and just want to thank you so much. And that was a very inspiring story, Mr. Miller, as well. You know, as I too am a physician, I appreciate the testimony there, and I reflect on the fact that I've taken care of families whose the parents or the guardians had unstable housing. They weren't necessarily homeless, and how difficult it was to actually help them because they didn't have an address, a stable address. And so, I don't think people, when we talk about service delivery or helping people out, often one of the first things we ask is, how do we reach you? Where are you? Where do you live? And when they can't answer that, all the other pieces don't come together. And so I think that, and I think that we have to be careful, and I understand that's what, you can maybe comment on this. In many ways, that's what the Housing First model is about. I mean, I've heard some comments from my good friends and colleagues here about, well, you know, there may be some people who are hanging out, doing things that most of us perhaps won't approve of and so forth, but how are we supposed to get them help? And there are other models. In fact, I will be visiting St. John's later today, and admirable program and so forth. But there are also situations where if you're going to get someone help, you need to have a place you can find them. And actually, how do we as a community benefit if they are just kind of hanging out? I mean, you're talking about hanging out. If they're just hanging out on the street, is that better off than hanging out in a place where at least there's a greater opportunity where for the folks who are checked out, that maybe we can get them to check back in again? Are they going to have a better chance of getting them to check back in if they're on the street than if they're in a place, in a house, or in some kind of facility? And also, in addition, I think it was commented earlier, is that their physical and mental health may actually deteriorate even more rapidly on the street than in a house or a home of some sort. So I do, I think that we want to, and that's why the research is really important. I appreciate the research that was presented. I think that's very important to look at what is the most effective ways. Can we have different models? Yes. You can have a model where maybe someone says, well, we'll take the people who have the best chances, who've already shown they can take ourselves to a certain point. But we also need places where, yeah, we're going to be helping out people who, at the moment, may not be so motivated to help themselves. But I don't think we just leave is really the best answer to say, well, we'll just leave you on the street for all the ills that also can lead to. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think, was made reference to the downtown partnership. They were concerned about how does that affect, the quality of life, not only, of course, for that person who's homeless, but also for the rest of us who are trying to attract business and other types of things too. And we don't want to stigmatize or they're not the people, but at the same time, what kind of solutions do we truly come together as a society? Is everything about a litmus test of saying that if you don't, and then we can't just, what are we going to do, throw them away? I mean, they're going to either be on the street or they're going to be in a house. So they're going to be somewhere. And so what do we do? What do we do to create the greatest opportunities to help people? And so I appreciate having the city of Sacramento here. Again, our office certainly looking forward to continuing to work with you. And I know that the city taking leadership. I know there's some contention in our community as well about how we're going about doing things. And let's try to look at different options, but also look at what's going to be most helpful to help people move along. And also, I think prevention is also important. I just have to make that comment. Appreciate my good friend from Yuba City commenting about, well, what can we do to prevent? And I think actually we talk about that in other hearings as well. Lots of research, high quality preschool, investing in education, being sure we increase support for people like childcare, welfare grants, et cetera. We've heard about the fact that now the resources you get in SSI aren't enough to keep you out. So in many ways, homelessness is the last tipping point, right? I think that's what you said. It's there's a bunch of other things, and then that's a list tipping point, and then when you hit that one and you lose the place, then suddenly all the other help kind of falls apart as well. So I think there's a lot of things we know that's evidence-based. We know what to do. Let's now have the political will to actually carry it out. And I appreciate you being here and testifying to helping us at least stop people before they hit that last tipping point. And we still have work even when we fix that to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pan. And again, Director Najendra, Dr. Kushel, Ms. Halkin, Mr. Ehrlich, we really appreciate your being here today and all the information that you brought us. I suspect you'll be hearing more from us because we've got a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we are going to combine our next two panels. So Mr. Euler from the LAO, if you could join us, along with Supervisor Villegas. Thank you for your patience. I know you're a busy gentleman. Along with our President Pro Tem, Kevin DeLeon, and our former Pro Tem and dear friend, Darrell Steinberg. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, as they come up, can I just quickly make a comment?
Of course.
Because I know Senator Wolk claimed Supervisor Villegas, but I'd like to state that actually he's a constituent in my Senate district. However, I would also like to say that I think you're in a fortunate place, Supervisor Villegas, because you have two senators who both want to claim you, and we're both of us are very eager to help you out. Thank you.
Okay, from me, thank you.
So noted. Senator Mitchell.
Senator Limo, just as the panel gets adjusted, Senator Morlock asked what counties were doing, and we didn't have any LA County representation in the first panel, so I just wanted to acknowledge that just February, this month, the 16th, I believe, LA County released their recommended strategies to combat homelessness, which covers everything from prevention to increasing income, provision of case management services, the creation of a coordinated system. So LA County's on the move too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Where shall we begin? Mr. Pro Tem, would you like to start?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll start, and then maybe we can segue to our Senate President Pro Tem Emeritus, Darrell Steinberg, and then we go to our colleagues, who have also joined us here today, Mr. Chair, as well as members. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to share a few words with each and every one of you. We're here today because we have a growing crisis in our state that demands our attention. Unfortunately, but the reality is that California is the nation's homelessness capital. The reality is in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the epicenter. The largest homeless encampment in the nation is in Los Angeles, California. Our state is home to more than 1/3 of the nation's chronically homeless population, and an even higher percentage among homeless women. Obviously, that is something that we're not proud of. On any given night, in our state, tens of thousands of men, women, and children will take refuge under underpasses, in parks, or on city streets. They are California's unsheltered homeless, and together their numbers are comparable to the populations of cities like Alameda, Davis, as well as San Clemente in Orange County. Many of them are mentally ill, and far too many are veterans who have served our nation. The fact is, homelessness impacts each and every one of us. It's a fundamental economic, public health, public safety, as well as quality of life issue that impacts families, businesses, cities, counties in every part of California. And the related problems are becoming more costly and more prevalent. The cost of social services associated with unsheltered homeless individuals can be as high as $100,000 per person per year. I think we can find smarter and more compassionate ways to address this challenge. She may have mentioned it already. If she hasn't, and I'll just say I want to thank Senator Holly Mitchell because she represented the California State Senate in her trip just recently to Salt Lake City, Utah, to investigate and to review their homeless program and plan that so far, relatively speaking, has been quite successful in comparison to many of the other programs throughout the country. It is very clear that we can do things much smarter. And I want to underscore a couple things because before I delved into this world of homelessness and those with mentally ill challenges, I had a lot of folks tell me, a lot of smart folks tell me, don't get involved in this issue. Don't get involved with this issue. It's not our problem. It's a local problem. Don't make their problems our problems. A lot of smart folks said this is a lose-lose situation. It's a no-win scenario to get involved in this. Let the locals, whether it's city and county, deal with this. But the reality is that we know this is not a federal, state, or local issue. This is everybody's issue. And this is an issue that impacts the condition of humanity for all individuals, irrespective of who they are and where they come from. And obviously, the reality is, as we move this forward, it starts with having a permanent roof over your head. And that's why I'm incredibly proud, and I had an opportunity to do so with several members here today, and with our Senate President Pro Tem Emeritus, Darrell Steinberg, to present the No Place Like Home initiative. This is a bipartisan proposal that will make access to a safe and permanent home, especially for the mentally ill and chronically homeless, a top priority. What we're doing collectively as a Senate in a bipartisan fashion, we are proposing a $2 billion revenue bond for construction or rehabbing of permanent housing for chronically homeless people who are mentally ill. The debt service will be paid by redirecting less than 7% of the revenues raised annually by Prop 63, and we also have the architect and the political force behind Prop 63, the millionaire's tax, with us today, obviously, our Senate President Pro Tem Emeritus, again, Darrell Steinberg. For the short term, we propose a general fund appropriation over a course of 4 years of $200 million. That includes supportive housing during a short interim period. That includes rent subsidies. In all, we believe the proposal will reap more than 10,000 new or rehabbed housing units, with another 4,000 shorter term units made available through rent subsidies. We're talking about a housing first approach, which many homeless advocates and social service experts see as a best practice. And this has been successful in other states. Providing safe, secure housing creates an environment that allows for wraparound services like mental health treatment to take hold. We also want to deal with the issue of SSI, SSP, Social Security income, state supplementary payment, the grants to better assist the homeless or potentially homeless who are disabled. More than 1 million SSI, SSP recipients will receive grant increases, and many more who are eligible will apply as a result of this increased outreach. Leveraging state, securitizing these dollars and stretching it to go as far as possible will provide housing assistance for thousands more. It's important to emphasize that while this initiative has a way to go during the budget negotiations in the process, as we engage with the executive branch as well as our friends on the other side, we are taking a bipartisan approach at how do we deal with this, because in fact it impacts all of us, irrespective of the hue of your skin, your geographical location, or your political party. And one last thing, because we have an amazing opportunity before us to do things smarter, in a much more intelligent way. In the city of Los Angeles, the city that I represent, along with Senator Holly Mitchell, last year when I read that they spent $100 million on the homeless population in the city of Los Angeles alone, along with Senator Ben Allen, I mistakenly assumed that it was $100 million dealing with wraparound services, mental health issues, as well as addiction issues, housing. It was $100 million that were invested, or rather not well spent, on 9/11 paramedic fire department calls, as well as arresting and booking homeless individuals. So if you're an individual who has had a lot of trauma and has numbed his or her pain with drugs, has become alcoholic, has rewired his or her brain, and now is homeless, chronically ill, and you're doing something that, quite frankly, you're not supposed to be doing, and someone calls the police department, in this case LAPD, they come give you a citation. With that citation, you're supposed to show up to court, but you can't show up to court, especially if you're schizophrenic and you have no address. And 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road and into the future, perhaps you're doing something again that you're not supposed to be doing, and they show up again. And they see that there's a FTA, a failure to appear, and what do? They take you in, they book you, they arrest you. And we spent all this money on an individual who needs help, so we can redirect, repurpose dollars in a much more intelligent fashion, stretch it as far as we can possible, securitize it so we can provide the warm, safe housing, the roof over the head that's needed, and perhaps these individuals, men and women, can start this lifelong journey to deal with the issues that have put them in the place where they're at today. So I'm excited to have an opportunity to work with my colleagues here during the budget negotiations. I'm very excited to have an opportunity to work with our Republican colleagues too, as this is a bipartisan fashion. And I'm just really, really excited to have an opportunity to work again with our very good friend, Darrell Steinberg, who I believe is one of the biggest champions, not just in the state of California, but in the entire nation when it comes to the issue of mental illness and when it comes to the issue of homeless. So, Mr. Chair, as Mr. Vice Chair, as well as colleagues, thank you very much for allowing me an opportunity to share a few words.
Senator DeLeon, thank you for your presentation, being with us today, but also for taking the lead, partnering with colleagues as well as with Darrell Steinberg in making use of this very creative idea of taking a very small percentage. I think you mentioned 7% of the yearly take of the Prop 63 dollars and purpose them for permanent supportive housing. It's going to go a long way. Darrell Steinberg, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. First time I've been back in this room in a long time, and I could not think of a better reason to come back to the Capitol than to both say hello to all of you, dear colleagues, but also to speak on behalf of this life-saving initiative here. Senator DeLeon, the pro tem, covered it well. I want to just a few thank yous, if I may. I want to thank the pro tem for taking this on, because there are many things you can take on in a big state like this, and many things that are compelling, and yet you chose to make this part of what you've taken on this year. And tens of thousands of people who you will never know will have better lives as a result. So thank you. And I say the same to Senator Mitchell, who's made this a cause, and Senator Pan, and all of you who are taking this on and making this such an important subject. I want to introduce my institute staff, because they really have been essential in helping to work with the Senate to put this together. Maggie Merritt and Anna Hasselblad from my institute here. And I want to thank Craig Cornett and your team for the staff for incredible amount of work. And Senator De Leon, the pro tem, laid this out. I just want to make a few additional comments that I think are important. That homelessness, we know, does not have to be hopelessness. It does not have to be. And if we cannot save everyone on the streets and end homelessness, we can save tens of thousands of people and make a dramatic difference and reduction in homelessness. Housing first, by the way, which I know is controversial in sort of an odd way in terms of what qualifies somebody to be able to take advantage of the housing. I want to emphasize that housing first is not housing alone. Housing first is not home alone. That was for the press, if anybody might be watching. Yeah, good. I used to be in politics,
Bada bing.
Bada bing. But seriously, housing first is not housing alone. What we are talking about here is housing as the literal foundation for being able to provide services to people. And that then needs to be combined with intensive outreach on the front end. We know what works. It's intensive outreach, it's housing, and it's services combined with the housing. So it's not housing alone, but with, as Senator Pan, I think, said a moment ago, without the housing, how do you even get started? This proposal, in my view, is an absolute no-brainer. I authored the Mental Health Services Act in California, as you know, in 2004. And just to give a little bit of history, we ran in part on a campaign of making a difference on homelessness. And I must tell you, because the counties are represented here today, there is remarkable work that is being done under the Act, county by county. There are 35,000 people being helped through so-called full-service partnerships, whatever it takes. Some of them chronically homeless, some of them not, many who are not homeless but cycle through emergency rooms and through other traumatic life events. But for some time here, in fact, from the beginning days of the Act, I said, we ought to capitalize on this fund because it's an ongoing fund and take advantage of the ability to create capital. And in year one of the implementation of the Act, we weren't quite able to perfect it legally. And so we set aside, when Governor Schwarzenegger was in office, and I had just left office the first time, we set aside $400 million for housing. That money's been well spent. It's led to the production of thousands of housing units. And our experience is telling. The money didn't just sit out there alone. It was leveraged, not 5-to-1, by the way, but I think if you go back and actually look at the numbers, it was leveraged almost 10-to-1. Tax credits, other forms of private and public investment. And the housing, by the way, generally is not segregated for those living with serious mental illness. It's integrated with workforce housing and other special needs housing to genuinely integrate people living with mental illness into their communities with the support that they need. But we weren't able to create that bond at the time. And now with this proposal and a very clear intent to set aside a percentage before it's distributed to the county so that the state can guarantee the repayment fund. And by the way, it may be 7%, but it may be actually a lot less to create a $2 billion capital fund because the money is growing. And because the money is growing, the effective percentage will actually go down. And the idea of being able to create $2 billion worth of capital, that could potentially be leveraged 5, 6, 7, 10 to 1 to be able to make a serious dent in this problem and save lives? I'm just so grateful that you're doing this and that this is a bipartisan effort. I remember the Republican leader of the state assembly when I was a freshman assembly member back in 1998 was the joint author of my first integrated services for the homeless mentally ill bill, AB 34. For this is a bipartisan issue because it affects all of our communities. And so, like so many other things in public policy, why shouldn't California be on the front end, with all due respect to Utah and other states, why shouldn't California be on the front end of making the investments, the wise investments, to show that homelessness does not have to be hopelessness? This is a good investment of the Mental Health Services Act dollars. It's a great investment of the Mental Health Services Act. And if I might use the podium to make one other point, and then I'll take leave. And that is, one of the things we want to emphasize here, the counties are incredible partners here. But I think that there is a challenge with the act, and that is that the money is distributed 58 ways. And so there are 58 different approaches, and many of them consistent, but it's very difficult for the public to see a statewide impact. And so here's opportunity one to not have the state control money. That's not the point, because the money will go back through the counties probably anyways. But to demonstrate that we want this act to achieve statewide improvements, whether it's homelessness, whether it's prevention and early intervention and campus-based mental health services, either in the K-12 system or on the college campuses. I urge the policymakers here during your time in office to continue to focus not on carving out the money necessarily, but to assure that the act is focused on attaining statewide objectives. Suicide reduction, prevention, a couple of signature prevention and early intervention, small I initiatives. You can define them. I think college-based mental health services is a key priority, and I know Assemblymember McCarty in the other house is carrying a bill to do that. And certainly reducing the impact on emergency rooms for people who cycle in and out, so-called 5150s. And this issue of homelessness ought to be a statewide approach and not just county by county. So I don't come in here often, but I kind of feel like, you know, you have your time, and I certainly had my time, and it was a great time. But I will come back here any day, at any hour, to help all of you with this incredibly important effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Steinberg.
Thank you.
Do you have time to stay with us?
Yeah, I'll stay.
Okay.
Is there lunch?
No, you missed lunch. You missed lunch. Colleagues, we could take time to ask the senator some questions before we go on to the other two presentations. I'm going to just start with one.
Go ahead, yes.
Can you talk to us about how we leverage the $2 billion 5 times or potentially 10 times